I'm Nikki, and today I'm the traumatized and the abandoned once again. And welcome to our podcast where we talk about true crime, spooky things, and everything in between. And today I'm going to be talking about a strange phenomenon that happened in 1980 that we still have very little answers for. So, as you guys can tell, it's another solo Nikki episode because Jess is finally moving. It has been a long month, but she finally got keys to a place and is getting settled in. So it's just me. Technically, this episode is supposed to be a chaotic chat, but I really wanted Jess to be there for that episode. And technically, we can categorize last episode as a deep dive. So I picked another little unsolved story to tie us over until Jess gets back next week. But first, let's get to the fun fact of the day. Fun fact of the day. Did you know that ketchup was once sold as medicine? The condiment was prescribed and sold to people suffering with indigestion back in 1834. Kind of crazy, right? Okay, so we're just going to jump right into it. Today I'm going to be talking about the Hollandwell incident. Sunday, July 13th, 1980 was just another normal day in Nottinghamshire, England. And I hope I said that right. That is until hundreds of children collapsed with no explanation. And this is the Hollandwell incident. So a little bit of background. Each year, the Hollandwell show took place at the Hollandwell Showground near Kirkby in Ashfield, a town in Nottinghamshire, England. In 1980, the annual summer festival was held on a beautiful sunny day in July. In 1980, the annual summer festival was held on the beautiful sunny day of July 13th. As part of the 1980 show, the Forest League of Juvenile Jazz Bands held a charity show creating a junior brass and marching band competition. Around 500 children from 11 marching bands from all across the East Midlands were in attendance. Now, the tradition of marching bands is actually quite a vibrant one, often associated with the coal mining areas. In the 19th and 20th century, nearly every colliery or coal mine in the UK had a brass band. They kept workers out of trouble and were a matter of civic pride for the local communities. Early on, the showground was a bustling mass of families and bands and spectators, with many food stalls setting up as the buses brought in the children and the bands. The competition was to begin around 9 a.m. with the band doing first a street parade where they were judged on music and marching. Then they were to do a 15-minute display to be judged again. The children stood proudly on the showground's clipped turf, the brass buttons on their bright and fancy uniforms gleaming under the Sunday morning sun. All of them waited for their turn to dazzle the large crowd in one of the Midlands' biggest junior brass and marching band competitions. Then, around 10:30 a.m., as a band was stepping off the field, one of the front girls fainted without cause, and it was like a domino effect across the field. Hundreds of kids began collapsing. Claire Brown was one of the children there that day, and she says, "I can remember it all stopping, all of a sudden. I think I can remember seeing a couple of children on the floor and panicking. Then I remember going home." Another contestant there that day was Penny Morley, who was around 10 when she was a member of one of the jazz bands set to perform that day. She said, "I can remember everybody falling like dead flies and people being so ill that they had to go to the hospital. I came home with a stomach pain, so I went to the hospital myself, but was fine in a couple of days. It was ages ago, but it's a day that has stuck in my memory." Terry Bingham, another child from that day, also fell ill. "It was like a nasty burning taste in my throat, and my eyes and nose started tingling. I can remember getting home that night, and the next thing I knew, I was in Chesterfield Hospital." Now, there were a wide variety of symptoms Along with the fainting, the children complained of headaches, nausea, stomach cramps, dizziness, pain, sore and streaming eyes, and just general soreness. Some also felt a terrible burning sensation in their eyes and mouths. Some describe the scene as a war zone, parents and coaches running around trying to help the children, getting them water. Children were being brought to the medical tent, but quickly it filled up and the children were being laid out on the ground outside the tent. Ambulance came and took the ill to the hospitals. One witness commented on how he had not seen that many ambulances since World War II. One paramedic commented how strange the call was. Report of mass casualties, children collapsing. He arrived at the site to see everyone in a state of panic. And back then, ambulances weren't as advanced as they are today. They didn't really triage on site and then bring to the hospital. They were basically just transportation. So they picked up the children and took them to the hospital. It was estimated around 300 victims fainted, including children, adults, and babies. 259 people were taken to 4 nearby hospitals, with 9 children being kept overnight. But not all the victims went straight to the hospital from the showground. Some children didn't experience any symptoms till hours later when they were at home. Claire Brown, whom I spoke about earlier, 2 hours later at home started to feel sick, and she said she had a white foam coming from her mouth. Her mother rushed her to the hospital. So, what happened? We need to know, right? There were actually many theories as to what happened that day, from the plausible to kind of the conspiratorial. Now, I'm going to talk kind of about the conspiratorial theories first because they're a little out there. But the first one being radio waves. As news spread of the incident, a man in Scotland phoned police to suggest high-frequency radio waves could have been responsible. Okay. Then things began to take an even stranger turn when a few overseas Associated Press reports mentioned an invasion from outer space. That's right. The theory being a UFO had landed in the field adjacent to the show, but the exact relationship of this to the mass collapse was not really elaborated on. Then we have the more plausible theories, like the first being maybe the food or water was contaminated. In fact, this was thought to be the cause during the fainting spell. It was announced over the loudspeakers not to eat the food or drink the water. Another theory was gas escaping from a mine. The show was located in the middle of coal country, and many wondered if a gas cloud could have escaped and hovered over the field. Another one, among all the theories, pesticides seemed to be the most popular and probable culprit. The pesticide Calixin, trade name for tridmorph, had been used on fields nearby. Tridmorph was considered safe at the time, but the British government has since banned the pesticide, and some eyewitnesses claim they saw a cloud of the insecticide drifting across the showgrounds, kicked up by all the marchers that attendees could have breathed in. Another very plausible theory, and kind of the most recently brought up theories, is that the toilets were over-cleaned. It is believed that 2 cleaning chemicals, one of them being bleach, were accidentally mixed when cleaning the toilets. This possibly could have created a toxic gas that the victims breathed in that morning, and this theory is backed up by witnesses commenting on a bleach-like smell that morning. And some had commented that the ground looked blue. So interesting. But would it shock you that none of these theories were what investigators said was the cause of the incident? That's right. Quite quickly, an official inquiry was done by the Environmental Health Committee and other local authorities. And they did investigate all of these theories, but settled on none of them as the cause of what happened that day. But starting off with the radio waves. A high-frequency transmitter was found nearby at a gas board depot, but this was ruled out as the cause. Next was the UFOs. It was revealed that police had indeed investigated reports of a UFO landing in the field adjacent to the show, but no evidence was ever found of this landing. But it kind of shows how desperate they were to try and figure out what happened this day, that they would investigate a UFO landing. Then there was the food and water contamination theory. They took samples of the food and drink, of course, from all the stalls. The results of the tests on the food samples proved negative in all cases. Similar tests by the Severn Trent Water Authority, which supplies the area with water, found the water had no bacterial impurity. So it wasn't the food and water. Next was the mine gas leak theory, which proved not to be the case either. A mine that had been working on was not really close to the field, and it had been capped weeks before the show. So I guess that's a no too. However, the crop spraying seemed promising, and the public opinion was forming around the idea that the children had been poisoned by a chemical insecticide used by farmers in spraying crops. This seemed to be confirmed by a spokesman at the Queen's Medical Center, Nottingham, who said that the children taken there had symptoms consistent with exposure to fumes of some kind. However, every lead turned up blank. Police tracked down the farmer who owned the adjacent field. It had not been sprayed for more than 10 years. Other inquiries at the course and nearby woods owned by the Nottinghamshire Golf Club, local farmers, and the Forestry Commission also cast doubt on the pesticide spraying. So nobody had sprayed any pesticide at any point close to the event taking place. Now, the toxic toilet cleaning theory is actually, like I said, a newer theory. So this was never really an option during the investigation, so therefore they never investigated it. And they probably never will investigate this theory. However, the investigation had now eliminated every improbable and probable theory. So what's left? Well, they did have one idea of what might have happened that day, and they claim that it was mass hysteria. At an evening press briefing, the Chief Inspector Ogden at the time admitted the whole thing is a complete mystery. Dr. John Wood, Director of Health for the Kirkby area at the time, added that he was becoming convinced that mass hysteria was indeed the only possibility since tests had virtually eliminated all the alternatives, to which Chief Inspector Ogden added a large number of small children had been parading and standing at attention for some time. They would also be under some pressure due to the occasion. He too concluded that hysteria spread after the first few had toppled over. When authorities made their final conclusion of mass hysteria, the public's reaction was not positive. Adults especially took offense to the implication that they or their children were faking symptoms or mentally unstable. Many also felt that this explanation was kind of just like a cover-up for police incompetence or a nefarious plot. Like I mentioned earlier, the investigation was quick to start, but it was also quick to finish. But what exactly is mass hysteria? Epidemic hysteria or mass hysteria refers to apparently contagious dissociative phenomena that take place in large groups of people or institutions under conditions of anxiety. Now, to be fair, the symptoms of mass hysteria do somewhat match those with the experiences at Hollandwell. In fact, there are many historic examples of mass hysteria that feature fainting, nausea, abdominal pain, convulsions, headaches, tremors, and hyperventilations, often affecting women and children, especially when they are grouped together in institutions such as schools or clubs. However, this doesn't necessarily make sense for the babies that fell ill, as they cannot necessarily be influenced by mass hysteria, or for those who didn't collapse until hours later when they were home or away from the event completely. But with the main inquiry, which was done quite quickly, like I said, closed with the reason being most likely mass hysteria, and the authorities repeatedly refusing to relook into the case, we might not ever know what truly caused the Hollandwell incident. In my personal opinion, I'm leaning towards maybe the cleaning toilets theory, but also mix that with environmental. What I mean by that is, like I said, it was a hot, sunny day in July, and all these kids were in their fancy, heavy uniforms. So it might have been them overheating along with a nasty chemical smell, and they just started passing out. Who knows? We don't know. We probably won't ever know exactly what happened that day. But what do you guys think? Let me know. But that's it for this episode. If you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to follow the podcast and leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with our username at TTATA Podcast. And in the bio of all of our social medias is our link tree. Our link tree has our email. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, topic ideas, hit us up. Let us know. Sorry, this week was kind of a short one. It was just me, but next week Jess will be back and we'll be doing a chaotic chat talking about some recent true crime cases. So yeah, hope to see you there. And with that, I'm gonna leave you with this inspirational quote. In every day, there are 1,440 minutes. That means we have 1,440 daily opportunities to make a positive impact. And that is by Les Brown. Again, guys, thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.